Okay. Good morning, everybody. So, we are towards the next class of Introduction to Engineering Mechanics. Quickly, we will brief up what we did last class. So, we have seen the characteristics of force in the last class, also called as elements of force, right? So, can anyone tell me what are the four elements of a force? First one,
Magnitude of force.
magnitude of force. Magnitude being the amount, the quantity of force that is acting. So we had taken an example of a man standing on a ladder at point C and the man's weight is W. These are the points A and B, 2 meters and 3 meters, something like this. Right? So first one is the magnitude, that is W, 700 Newton, 600 Newton, that is the magnitude of the force. Second one,
Point of
Point of
application.
application.
point of application, meaning where the force is acting. The force is acting at a point C, which is from 2 meters or 3 meters from so and so points, right? So point of application is where the point is, sorry, where the force is acting. Next.
Line of
Line of
action.
action.
Yes. Line of action. What is the line of action in this case?
Vertical.
Yeah,
Vertical.
whether it is horizontal, whether it is vertical, whether it is acting at some angle. If it is acting at some angle theta to the horizontal or some angle theta to the vertical, so that is the line of action. If it is a not a horizontal and a vertical force, and then else we'll have a horizontal and a vertical forces. What about the fourth one?
Direction.
Direction.
Direction. So what is the direction here?
Downward.
Downward direction. Yes, the force is acting downward, right? So these are the four characteristics of the forces that we have done in the last class. Apart from this, what else we did? We defined what is a force and then we studied the system of forces, right? So which are the different types of forces do you remember? Randomly you can name.
Collinear forces.
Yes, collinear forces. That is, they are acting in the same line. Might be in opposite direction, but they're acting in the same line. Yes, next.
Coplanar
Coplanar.
forces.
Yes, you have coplanar and you have non-coplanar. In this only, you have permutations and combinations made up with concurrent and non-concurrent. Correct? Permutation combination meaning coplanar concurrent, coplanar non-concurrent. It goes like this. Then non-concurrent, non-coplanar concurrent, non-coplanar non-concurrent. So here only you get four forces. Then you have your collinear force. And then apart from these, which other forces? You have like, unlike, right? And parallel, non-parallel forces. Right? So together you have to write all of these forces with the diagram. Like this. So this is a concurrent force system and this is a non-concurrent force system, XYZ axis. So if it comes for 6 marks, you will write their names and draw for individually their small diagrams, okay? Individually draw the diagram. If it is coming for 8 to 10 marks, then you have to explain each of it in one line. Like for example, collinear, you will write its definition. When forces are moving in the same line, right? Coplanar, when forces are acting in the same plane, like that. So you have to explain it in that manner. So that was all about your system of forces. Then we started with the principles. Remember? So there are three principles. I think first one we did principle of physical independence. Somebody said, Shifa, can you explain non-coplanar, non-concurrent? Yes. Non-coplanar means it is not in the same plane. So something you have X, Y, Z like this. Okay. And non-coplanar means they are not in one plane, meaning they are in all the three planes. So something, if only non-coplanar I want to draw, I will be drawing it like this, right? Now in this only, the condition is non-coplanar, non-concurrent. Non-concurrent, they are not passing through a same point, something like
Ma'am, it's not
this.
visible.
Yes,
It's not visible, ma'am.
it's not visible. Okay. You have your XYZ axis. So when I say non-coplanar, meaning it is in all the three planes, right? And non-concurrent, it is not passing. Concurrent is something like this, passing through a same point. Non-concurrent, they will be acting anywhere. So now this non-concurrent force system has to be placed here, which is non-coplanar. So something like this, anywhere they're acting. So these four forces, say F1, F2, F3, and F4, these four forces are acting in all the three planes. That's why they are non-coplanar. Okay, and they are non-concurrent because they are not acting through one single point. The same thing if I give you a condition of non-coplanar and concurrent. Okay, so when I say it is concurrent, meaning they're passing through a same point like this, but it is in all the three planes. So no non-coplanar, concurrent this is. Previously what I do, if you draw it like this in this pattern, you're not passing through a same point, then it becomes non-concurrent. Okay, is it clear, Shifa?
Yes, ma'am.
No. Next, coming to, I was discussing about the principles. I do have a duster for the whiteboard, but that doesn't erase properly. That's why I make use of a napkin. Okay, you all might think how gross madam is. So I just told. Principles. We were discussing about the principle. First one was principle of physical independence. Right? All these three also are important. They can be asked for state the three principle or state the principle of physical independence like that. Right. So what was this principle all about? The name itself says physical independence, meaning the forces are going to be independent of each other. The effect of forces, if there are two forces acting on a body like this, each of it, action of each force is going to be independent of each other. Okay, that is principle of physical independence. That is, the action of a force on a body is not affected by the action of the other force on the same body, right? Then second, we saw principle of superposition. Superposition. Okay, superposition. So principle of superposition states what? Anybody can recall? I had given an example of first I will apply 5 kilonewton, then there will be some displacement. Then again I'll apply 5 kilonewton, then there will be some more displacement. If I apply together 10 kilonewton, then this whatever is the displacement that we are getting will be same as this. What was the statement related to this? Can anyone recall?
The net effect of a system of forces is equal to the combined effect of the forces.
Very good. This is the net effect. Okay, the net effect of the system, that is when I apply 5 Newton, I have some movement, then I'll apply another 5 Newton, I'll have another amount of displacement coming, right? So to get this is individual, and when I am going to apply total 10, whatever is these two displacements together, one displacement I will be obtained here. So this is net effect will be equal to the combined effect, or individual effect will be equal to the combined effect. Apart, this was one of the definition. There was one more definition, wherein if I am going to add forces which are in equilibrium, right? So this is 10 kilonewton, this is 10 kilonewton. I'm applying these two 10 kilonewtons on a body. Both are in equilibrium. Why? Because one is going here, one is going here. Both will cancel each other. They tend to cancel each other. Such forces are called as what? Equilibrium forces. Okay, so if we add a set of force which is in equilibrium on a body, it will have no change. There is no change if I'm going to add a set of forces which are equilibrium on a system of body, whether it is at rest or at motion. So when I add equilibrium forces, it will have no change. Say for example, a body is moving with some speed. Okay, say it is moving at 5 kilometers per hour. Some speed like this, right? So when it is moving at 5 kilometers per hour, if I'm going to add force which are in equilibrium to that particular body, it will have no effect. It will still go at 5 kilometers per hour only, because these set of forces which we're adding are in equilibrium and they'll have no effect on that particular body. So that is all about your principle of superposition. Principle of superposition is important concept, will be used in many places. Okay, if you understand the concept is more than sufficient. Next, third one, important. This is called as principle of transmissibility. Now, spelling is important. Okay, TRANS, transmissi, MISSI, ability, BILITY. Why I said this is 50% of the class will not know this spelling. Okay, even when I write it on the board, by taking down also they make it mistakes. In the blue books, too, I get beautiful different spellings. So please cut it and try to memorize it. It is transmissibility. Okay, you can bring it as transmissibility. Okay, principle of transmissibility of forces. Right. Now, what is this principle of transmissibility? I will first explain it in simple language, and then I will talk it in terms of technical. So I also told you the definition of line of action. Apart from a line of action being horizontal or vertical, I also told that if you have a force acting like this, if I extend that line of force, right, this becomes your line of action. Do you remember? Do you remember? The extended line of force is also called as line of action. Whatever is the force in the same direction, I will extend that line. Simply, I'll extend the line. That becomes the line of action of that particular force. Say I have a force acting here, F, okay, which is horizontal. That means if I'm going to draw a dotted line in the same line like this, so this becomes the line of action. Sorry, line of action of this force F. Same line. It is acting in this same line. You're showing the line of that particularly. Okay. So that is one more meaning. Or if I ask you to draw a line of action, you will be drawing it like this, right? So consider a rigid body, and I have 2 points A and B. Right? There is a force F acting at point A. Right? Now I will draw the line of action. This B point comes after the line of action. I will draw the line of action of force F in this manner. That is, I will simply extend the line in the line of this force. Okay, so it comes here. This point where it is coming towards the other dead point, I will name it as point B. Okay, so this is a force F. This is the line of action. This is point A, and point B is in the line of action of that force F only. Now, the same body. So we have this point A and this point B, and this is your line of action. Okay. So what I'll do from your second law, what is second law or second principle? Principle of superposition states that on addition of forces which are in equilibrium, there will be no change on the body. Correct? So this is your force F, which is already acting. Okay. And from principle of superposition, I will add 2 forces in this manner. Okay, F. I will add 2 forces at point B. Remember, point B is along the line of action. Okay, add 2 forces which are in equilibrium at this point B. Okay, this is from your principle of superposition. Now, because these 2 are in equilibrium, they cancel each other. That is why we are adding, and it will have no effect. Now, what we'll do, instead of these 2, because they are of magnitude F only, this force which is going in and this force which is coming in, they both also can cancel each other, right? So what am I left up with in that? So this was your line of action, and we are then left up with only this force F. Okay, the force at this point A has got cancelled with one of the equilibrium forces at this point. These 2 were supposed to get cancelled, so I added, but instead of cancelling these 2, we'll cancel one force of F here at point A and one force of F here at point B. So what is the remainder? A force F at point B. Okay, this and this are going to be same now, right? So according to principle of transmissibility, I can always replace a given force anywhere along the line of action of that force, and it will have the same effect as it had before. Okay, did you understand anything? Anybody? Or I will repeat once again. Something at least is clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll explain once again. No issues. You have a rigid body, and at point A, you have a force F acting. Okay, you will draw the line of action of the force like this, and where it comes and ends at this other edge, I'll call it as point B. Now, from principle of superposition, addition of forces which are in equilibrium will have no effect on the system of force. So what we will do, we will add two forces of same magnitude as that of F, like this, at point B. What is point B? B is a point along the line of action of the force. So we added two forces which are in equilibrium at point P. Now one force of this equilibrium set of forces and one force which is at point A, both being of different signs, cancel each other. Okay, we will cancel those to each other, and remainder would be a single force F at point B. So this will have the same effect. Figure C will have the same effect as that of figure A, which tells us that I can replace this given force anywhere along the line of action of the force line. Okay, and it will have the same effect as that of the previous one. So the definition for this is, according to this principle, the state of rest or motion of a body is unchanged, meaning unaltered or unchanged, if a force acting on a rigid body is replaced by another force at of the same magnitude anywhere along the line of action of the replaced force. Okay, so that is principle of transmissibility. This is an important question. State and prove, they ask. State and prove principle of transmissibility, 6 to 8 marks. Very favorite question of many of the examiners. So statement would be, you will write, that is, according to principle of transmissibility, the state of rest or of motion of a body remains unchanged if a given force is replaced by another force of same magnitude anywhere along the line of action of the body. Okay, or a line of action of the force. So you can write it in that manner. So that is the statement. How you will prove it? For proving, you need to draw these three diagrams. That is, figure A will show a force acting at point A, and this is the line of action of the force. Figure B will show that addition of two forces which are in equilibrium at point B. And figure C, here only you will show one force of this and one force at A getting cancelled. And figure C will show us only the force which is remaining at point B. Then you have to explain this figure. That in figure A, we will see that point A, there is a force F acting, and this is the line of action. From principle of superposition, we will add two forces which are in equilibrium at point B, and a force at B and a force at A will get cancelled, to which remainder would be a force at B. So this is the proof that you have to explain in words, not like mathematics, in words, for principle of transmissibility. If you've drawn this figure properly, he will know that you know the principle, and it would save time, and he would give you marks also. Any answer, any subject, if it has got a figure involved, always draw the figure properly. They will first check the figure. If you have drawn the figure properly, it indicates 90% of the times you know the answer. Okay, so they will read, I'll not say that they'll not read the theory, but they will know that you know the concept. So always which the solutions or the answers which contain figures, please memorize the figures properly and draw the figures neatly. That would actually fetch you more marks. Clear? So this is all about your principle of transmissibility. Any doubt with principle of transmissibility? It is an important question. Okay. Assuming you are not answering anything, I'll assume that you have no doubts with principle of transmissibility. Next, we have something called as moment of a force. Moment of a force. Have you heard this term moment? Yes. No? Have you heard this term moment? You can type it in the message box. Have you heard? Have you not heard? Am I audible? Yes. Okay. So, have you heard moment? Yes, no? I'll not ask you to define. It's okay. No? Yes. Okay. Moment you all have heard. So what is moment? It gives a rotational effect. Can anyone recall what is the formula for moment M? What is the formula?
F into A.
F into A. What is A? Correct. And depending on what is A?
Perpendicular distance.
Perpendicular distance. Very good. Perpendicular distance. Correct. So you know the formula. M equal to F into A. So I will just explain it once again. If I want a moment of a force, we will have a force, right? Acting F with some magnitude F. And say there is a point O here somewhere. And I will drop a perpendicular from force F to this point O. Like this. Perpendicular means it makes 90 degree. And this perpendicular distance, I will call it as D. Okay, I will not use A, I will use D, right? Because distance D. So there is a drop, always it has to be a perpendicular distance only, right? So this is the point O, this is a perpendicular distance D, and this is the force F. Now if I want the moment of this force F at point O, so moment at O it becomes MO. If I have another point here 1 and I'm trying to take the moment at 1, then I will write it as moment at 1, M1. Okay. So if I want to find the moment of this force at point O or about point O, it is given by the product of the magnitude of the force and the perpendicular distance between the force and that point. Okay. So magnitude of the force is F and perpendicular distance is D. So moment of a force is generally defined as the product of the magnitude of the force and the perpendicular distance D. F into D we take it as. Okay. So this is moment of a force. Now because when I'm talking of moment, how do F go to O? Like I want the moment means it is, I told first only it is a rotational effect. Rotatory effect. Rotatory means what? Circular, like this. Right? So if I want to, according to that, if I want to see, this is the point O. If I place the thumb at point O and this is a force F. So how is it going to rotate now? Looking at the sign convention here. The
Clockwise.
arrowhead is on, yeah, the arrowhead is on top, so it is going to rotate like this, right? So if you have a clockwise rotation, you will have a positive sign convention. If say I put the arrowhead downwards, the same force, I will show it here now. And I'm taking the moment at O. So how is this rotating now? It goes like this, right? That is, it is going to go in this manner. That is anti-clockwise. So anti-clockwise or counter-clockwise, it will be negative. This sign convention is just for our, it is like our assumption. It is not that always I have to go with clockwise as positive and anti-clockwise as negative. No. If there is somebody who says, I want to go ahead with clockwise as negative and anti-clockwise as positive, he is allowed to go because your values will be same. Only signs will be changing and that doesn't matter much. Okay. So you want to go ahead with this assumption, no problem. But when you start the solution or when you start solving, you have to make a note saying that anti-clockwise is positive. So the person who is checking your answer sheet, he will know that you are taking anti-clockwise as positive. So whenever you have got a negative answer, that indicates that it is for him it is clockwise. Okay. So these sign conventions are just for our purpose, something like assumptions, like basic idealizations we spoke of in mechanics. So this is for our benefit or for our work to get more simpler. You can always change the sign convention. There is no hard and fast rule that you have to take negative, you have to take positive, anywhere. Okay. Anywhere I'm talking of. So sign conventions are made by us. You can always change them. So clear with what is moment? Moment is the, if I ask you to define, it is a product of the force and the perpendicular distance. And then based it acts as a rotatory effect, either it can give you a clockwise rotation or it will give you an anti-clockwise rotation. Generally, we go ahead with clockwise as positive and we go with anti-clockwise or counter-clockwise as negative. Okay, because it is a rotatory effect, we will be dealing with the rotation like this. So you will have numericals like this. A body will be given and a force will be given here, a force is given over here. You have to take the moment of these forces. Say this is F1 and F2. Okay, at this point, say this is O. So now when I'm taking the moment, say I'll call this as B, distance, and this is, say, this is distance is B and this distance is D. So if I'm taking the moment of this F1 at O, so how is F1 going? Okay, I will draw it a bit bigger. It is important concept. Your first 3 modules are all on based on this only. Moment, resolution and everything. So if your concepts are not clear, full board is not visible. Darshan? Somebody unmute, board is visible? I'm using only this much part.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm only using, board is bigger actually, but I'm using only so much. Okay. So what was I talking? Okay, take an example like this. You have numericals of this pattern. So this is a point O, say, and there is a force F1 here, and say there is a force F2 here, and let this distance be equal to B, breadth, and let this distance be D. It's a rectangle, so it is understood that this is B, then this is B, this is D, then this is D. Correct? Now, if I'm taking the moment of the force F1 at O, okay, F1. So this is the point where I have to take moment, and this is your force. There are 2 ways of doing it. So I'll tell you the both ways. You will place your thumb where you want to take the moment. Okay, and you will place your forefinger at the force where with the force whichever is present. Now, if this force has to go to this O, looking into the sign convention, it will go like this. Correct? So what direction is this? This is anti-clockwise, right? So when I'm writing moment, it is going to be F1 into what is the perpendicular distance between these two, O and F. That is this distance. That is B. Okay. Similarly, moment at O because of F2 force, if I want to write, right? This is F2. So this is your force and this is F2. So F2 will go to O in clockwise direction. So this is negative and this becomes plus F2 into perpendicular distances D. Okay, this is one way. Or I have students who get confused with how to take the perpendicular distance. So line of action, what I was talking of, line of action is very important. This is the line of action of the force, F1, right? And when I'm talking of perpendicular distance, I need a point. This is the point. And imaginary line of action of that point perpendicular to this, I mean, if I want the perpendicular distance, it has to be parallel to this. So I will imagine a line parallel to the force line. So this becomes my perpendicular distance. Now what is the distance? B. So F1 into B, then look for the direction. It goes, how easily it is going to meet. If this goes faster or this goes faster, shorted distance, this now. So it is going to be anti-clockwise. Same concept when I'm dealing with F2. This is the line of action of F2 and this is the line of action of your point where the moment has to be taken. So between these two is the perpendicular distance. What is that? D. Now F2 reaches the line of action this way quickly, or F2 reaches the line of action in this way quickly. The shortest, that is this one. So it is a clockwise with plus sign. Okay, when we are dealing with numericals related to this, I will explain it again and then only we will take up numerical. So this is about the moment of a force. Definition is, it is nothing, it is given by what? The product of the magnitude of force and the perpendicular distance. Okay. Now, based on this only, there is something called as couple. What is couple? Not that couple in the garden, college garden. What is a couple?
Pair of two.
Pair of two forces. They are like or unlike? They're in same direction or different direction?
Different direction.
Different direction. Good. They're parallel or they are not parallel?
Parallel.
They're parallel. Okay, that is like this. Okay. So this will form a couple. That is, there are two forces of same magnitude. They have to be of same magnitude. So there are two forces of same magnitude which are parallel and they are separated by a definite distance d. They form a couple. Okay. Couple also will have a rotatory effect. Why? Because this force keeps going like this and this force keeps going like this. So it is going to be a rotatory effect. So that is what is couple. So if I want to define a couple, it is two parallel forces equal in magnitude, opposite in direction, separated by a definite distance d. Okay, this is what is couple. I have a concept related to couple and moment. Couple, moment, and force couple system it is called. That we will take up later. Okay, because there is a slight change in how we are going to go ahead with your modules. So we will keep this here only. Definition at least you remember, right? After couple, do you know what is resolution of a force? Can you define resolution of a force or composition of force? Do you remember any one of this? Please unmute and tell me what is resolution and composition. Well, I've done this.
Splitting of forces.
Is correct. Splitting of forces is which? Composition or resolution?
Resolution.
Composition.
Resolution. Splitting of forces is resolution. What is composition then? Exactly opposite to this. Combining the forces. Okay, I'll tell a simple way. You have a force F. I divide this force into two perpendicular forces like this, F of X and F of Y, based on the angle. That is the resolution of a force. We divide, split or we divide. Okay, dividing a given force into two forces which are mutually perpendicular to each other. They are making 90 degree. They have to make always 90 degree. Okay, 90 degree. That's why X and Y name we are using, right? So dividing a force, given force, into two mutually perpendicular forces is called as resolution. Okay, composition. See, compose or combine or combination. So when I have many forces acting, okay, I will find one single force which will have the same effect of all these forces. I call it resultant. I'm combining all these forces and finding one force, right? So that is composition. There are three forces, there could be four forces, there could be five forces, there could be n number of forces. So we are combining all those forces and their effects to find one force which will have the same effect, and that is called as a resultant. So that is what is coming under composition. Your resolution and composition is all about your first, second, and third module. The concept has to be very clear. You see the importance of these two. 3 modules, making it 60% of your syllabus is only composition and resolution. And we have all coplanar kind information. We'll be dealing with all coplanar only. Application of all these. In friction, it is there, in different bodies, right? So everywhere I am doing only resolution and composition. Entire mechanics, 60% of this is that only. Because rest module 4 is something related to your CG and MI, moment of gravity and moment of inertia. There I don't have this. And module 5 is dealing with your kinematics. So this is little different. Apart from these two, the first 3 modules. In first module, part A is theory that we did last week. Part B, introduction to mechanics, to the end of third module. It is everywhere only resolution and composition, nothing else than this. So your concept of resolution and composition has to be very strong. One. Next, you have to be very attentive at the starting classes. That is when we start the numericals related to this. Because if you don't catch a hold of these two here, then these 3 modules are gone. Simply gone. You will never understand module 3 if you don't understand the simple concept of resolution and composition. So see that I'm not scaring you here, but I want to tell you the importance of these two. Okay, so you have done already resolution and composition. You know what is a resultant. Resultant is a single force which will have the same effect as that of the group of forces. That itself is composition. When I'm trying to find the resultant, I'm trying to compose. I'm trying to combine the forces. That is composition. And to find the resultant, each of the forces will be divided into X and Y. That is, we'll be splitting and dividing all the single forces into all horizontals and into all verticals. That is resolution. So both are going hand in hand here. Which one is important, which one is not? No, both are equally important. And without each other, we cannot go ahead with the resultant only. Right? So this entire concept of resolution and composition is going to be Very important. For now, you do only the definition, that is resolution is dividing a single force into two mutually perpendicular forces, and composition is combining all the forces or n number of forces to get one single force, that is the resultant. Okay. So this is about composition and resolution. Based on this, that is resultant and these forces, there are 2-3 laws. I'll just tell the names of the laws. Just tell me whether you can recollect. There is something called as parallelogram law. Have you heard? There is triangular law. It is also there in your vectors. Can you remember parallelogram law and triangular law? Yes, no, I will define. My voice is getting stuck in between. Sorry, Yash. Must be network problem. Have you heard parallelogram law? No. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, actually, you have to be well versed with the parallelogram law. What about triangular law? Yes. Okay. Fine. I will define parallelogram law. But before that, tell me what is a parallelogram? Somebody, quick. What is a parallelogram? High school mathematics, that is. Not even PUC.
Quadrilateral with two parallel lines.
Is this a parallelogram?
No, ma'am.
Is this a parallelogram?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Quadrilateral, you can say, wherein opposite sides are parallel to each other. These two, it's not a rectangle. They are at some angle. So this side forces, sorry, not forces. These two sides are parallel. These two sides are parallel. This is not. Why? Because these two sides are not parallel. Only one set is parallel. When both the sets are going to be parallel, that is called as a parallelogram. Okay. And there is a parallelogram law. I will not prove the parallelogram law now. I will do it later, but I will define what is a parallelogram law. Okay. So say we represent two forces, F1 and F2, on two adjacent sides of a parallelogram. What is adjacent? Side by side. Okay. Adjacent sides mean these two. This and this is not an adjacent side. They are far away. Adjacent means they are together. So let us represent forces F1 and F2 on two adjacents of a parallelogram. We know what is a diagonal. A diagonal is the one which is passing from this corner to this corner. Correct? So if we represent two forces F1 and F2 by two adjacent sides of the parallelogram, then the resultant of these F1 and F2 is given by the diagonal of that particular parallelogram. Okay. So what can you get the definition? Are you clear with the definition? That is, if two forces are represented by two adjacent sides of a parallelogram, then the resultant of these two, resultant is what? F1 and F2 are two forces. I will combine and make it as one force which will have the same effect. So the resultant of these two forces R is given by the diagonal of the parallelogram starting from this point. That is where they both are having the adjacent point, no point of contact. From this, whatever the diagonal is passing, that is the resultant of these two forces, F1 and F2. This is parallelogram law. There is a proof for this. I'm not taking the proof right now. When we do the numericals, I'll take the proof, and because I have to anyways define it once again. Then comes the triangular law. What is triangular law? So I know it is something to do with the triangle. Okay. If I represent two forces, one after the other, F1, F2. If I represent two forces, one after the other, on the two adjacent sides of the triangle, then the third side, this is the remaining third side, the third or the closing side represents the resultant of these two forces. Okay. So if we represent two forces by two sides of a triangle, one after the other, then the third side or the closing side represents the resultant of these two forces. This is your triangular law. Clear? So this is parallelogram and triangular law. We will be making use of parallelogram law. State and proof parallelogram is a theory question. Okay, what you have done in your POC, the same proof is there. That theta, you get that final equation r equal to under root f1 square plus f2 square plus 2 f1 f2 cos of theta. This equation, we will be deriving this equation. So it is related to parallelogram, and then this is only for statement. Triangular law is only for the statement. So with all this, and then we will be starting with the numericals related to mechanics. Okay, I'll just stop the recording. Don't exit.